Hello everyone, and welcome to the video solution of the class Excel activity, apples and oranges. Apples and oranges are two completely different fruits whose data is being stored in two completely different worksheets. But who says that we cannot compare them anyway? In this activity, we will be taking two sheets of data and comparing their values against each other to determine which is the ultimate fruit. Before we take a look at the instructions, let's take a look at the data. So as you can see, we have our worksheets, apples and oranges. And each worksheet has 5 columns of data: durability, ease of use, taste, juiciness, and aerodynamics. And as you can see, the numbers are different for oranges. Now, just as a forewarning, the numbers will change as you work through the worksheet because each of these values is set to a random number between 1 and 10. So if you click around, each of them is a random number between 1 and 10. All right, so the first thing we want to do is calculate the average values of the data contained in each column. So as you can see here, we've used the average function to calculate the average of this column, and we can just hit enter and we'll get our result. We'll use the same function across each row, and instead of having to type it out, we can just drag that bottom corner across, and each formula will be edited to the appropriate column. We want to do the same thing for the oranges worksheet. And there we have the average score for each of the parameters. Let's take a look at what we need to do next. We want to create a new worksheet which will be used to compare each of the characteristics of apples and oranges against each other. We want to create 5 columns with the headers durability, ease of use, taste, juiciness, and aerodynamics, then create 3 rows with the headers apples, oranges, and winner. Let's start with those. All right, so you can see we have a compare sheet. Now that we have the basic table, we want to pull in the averages data from the apples and oranges worksheet, placing them in their respective cells in our new worksheet. Now it's going to be very easy to do. All you want to do is you want to hit equals, click on the apples worksheet, and then click on the cell that you want and hit enter. And as you can see, 5.1 came up, and if we check the apples worksheet, 5.1 is the average score for durability. Now, since our columns are set up in the same order as the columns in our apples and oranges worksheet, we can click this and drag it across. And as you can see, each of these values are the same as in the apples worksheet. And for the oranges worksheet, it's very similar, except we'll use oranges instead of apples. And there we have our table almost completely filled. Now we want to use a conditional formula to determine whether apples or oranges hold a greater average value per column and print which one in the winner row. The way we'll do that is we'll use a if statement to compare each of these values. Handily, Excel tells us what each of the parameters are. So if B2 is greater than B3, that's our logical test. If 5.3 is bigger than 4.4, then apples win, our value if true, and our value if false, oranges win. Oranges win. All right, let's go ahead and hit enter. After we hit enter, remember that the numbers will constantly change each time you do something because each of the values is set to a random integer. Oranges was 5.6 and apples became 4, so that means oranges win. And once again, easily we can drag the cell across. Each cell, if you look in the formula bar right up here, edits accordingly, and that is the solution to the activity. Let's take a look at the bonus. We want to write a formula to determine the overall winner by counting which has the most wins. We also want to make another worksheet which calculate the averages in the new worksheet itself, as opposed to referencing the averages calculated in the apples and oranges worksheet. Let's start with number 2 first. What we're actually going to do here is we're going to combine steps 1 and 4 from the original instructions. So as you can see from the formula bar, into the cell we input the average of the cells A2 from A1 in the apples worksheet. Let's hit enter, and we have 5 for durability. Let's take a look at the apples worksheet, and this score is the same right down here. And dragging across gets our averages for the other values. Now we'll do the same thing for oranges. The winner row will be the exact same conditional as before. We'll be checking the values of the apples versus the values of the oranges. Now we want to check the overall winner, and the way we're going to do that is whoever has the greater number of winners will be the overall winner. So we'll be using a formula called count ifs. So we're going to count how many oranges are in this row, and we're going to compare them to the number of apples in this row. This is a little bit of a confusing formula. Let's take a look at the count ifs first. So We have countifs in the range of B4 to F4, so that's our winner row, and we're counting how many oranges. If the number of oranges is greater than the number of apples, then oranges win. However, if that is false, apples win. And as you can see, there were 4 oranges and 1 apple, so oranges win. So if we just input a random number here and hit enter, it will randomize the numbers again so we can check that it actually works. The reason we want to change a random cell is to allow the random integer to work so that we can continue to test our code. It can be any random number, didn't have to be 4. And that is the solution to apples and oranges.